What's going on, everybody? Sam Shapiro back here with more of your Heat latest on FanArc. Tons to break down against last night's preseason game against the San Antonio Spurs. But before we get into that, don't forget to drop a like on this video. And of course, subscribe to our channel for great daily content, all pertaining to your Miami Heat right here Monday through Friday. Well, Miami picked up its third preseason loss last night against the San Antonio Spurs as they fell 112 to 107. And while I kind of feel like it was a tale of two halves rather, there were definitely some positive takeaways for this Miami team, especially underlining Kel'el Ware and Kasparas Jakučonis' play. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but the starters in this game honestly looked pretty sloppy. Both Wiggins and Adebayo shooting 3 of 10 respectively from the field and combining for 17 points in that game. Definitely not what you necessarily want to see, but again, it's the preseason. It's not the end of the world. Jovic having 3 across the board with a minus 16 while he was on the floor in 23 minutes of play. Also not the most exciting thing to see, but obviously he's not going to have every game where he's at least coming out and being one of the more efficient players on the floor in the grand scheme of things. So quite honestly, the starters look pretty sloppy, and maybe that was necessarily why Miami didn't have the upper hand in the majority of this game, and they really kind of did commandingly through the first half, I felt like. But Norman Powell definitely made more of added to his compelling case why he's going to be this team's leading scorer, at least until Tyler Herro is able to come back and be healthy for the 305. He had 18 points on 6 of 13 shooting in this game, 9 points in each half, and he kind of showed that he could really score from anywhere. He was great off the catch and shoot. He was making strong drives to the basket, had some nice floaters in that game, but he really showed that he could score from anywhere, create his own shots, but also be in a primetime spot to create plays and be open for positive looks that really could really look well in transition in the grand scheme of things. So Powell, obviously out of the starting lineup, definitely had the strongest performance out of the 5 guys that suited up. So again, that was also very nice to see, but I think the lackluster play from the starters is definitely one thing that held Miami back in this matchup and why they weren't able to necessarily get in the win column tonight. Unfortunately, however, the play from Powell was definitely one promising thing that I was kind of able to take away from this. And don't get me wrong, there were definitely points where Miami starters looked red hot in the first half. In the second quarter, they came out with an 8-0 run. And obviously that wasn't necessarily when they had all 5 starters on the floor, but it at least contributed to why this first half definitely looked a lot stronger for Miami in the grand scheme of things compared to the second half of the game. So kind of going back to Powell, it was at least promising to see him kind of really show off his shot making abilities, both in creating his own shots, but being an open opportunity for his teammates to kind of capitalize on and getting good looks at scoring the basket. But now I want to get into the nuts and bolts of really the highlight of this game. Miami's second unit absolutely carried in this game, and that charge was led by Kel'el Ware in this game overwhelmingly. 29 points, 12 rebounds he had those 29 points, by the way, on 12 of 19 shooting, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc. He only had 2 turnovers in this game, which I thought for the grand scheme of things was kind of at least good, at least for Kel'el Ware. And I don't know if Spoelstra's words kind of got to him or whatever, but the efficiency from him in this game, plus 10 while he was on the floor in the 26 minutes he played last night. And that is what I believe, or that is why I believe so many people are high on Kel'el Ware and the type of player he could potentially be for Miami. But this is also a performance he's bringing in coming off the bench. So it also might beg the case that he might, at least at this point, again, be a better player off the bench for Miami, at least at this point in time, until he shows he can consistently come in and or at least be a starter and put up these kind of numbers in a way that can contribute to keeping Miami in the game. He had a lot of ferocious dunks, was absolutely lethal off the pick and roll with Jakučonis in this game, and he just had a lot of really strong scoring opportunities, absolutely dominated the defensive glass in this game. So was a very hard player, or was really a tough matchup, I feel like, for the Spurs in this one. And he definitely made the case that when he is consistent and when he shows up to play, he can definitely come and show up to play. So again, I think if he can consistently be dominant in this regard, he not only will be a starter, but really has the potential to help elevate this team, especially when he's bringing that stat line to a team when it's contributing an impact point to the game, when the tides could really turn. Because granted, he could score 30 points. He obviously made it clear tonight, but if it's really contributing to nothing really in the grand scheme of things in terms of getting Miami in the win column, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. And I think that's what Spoelstra was trying to get at, as I mentioned in the last episode. And tonight, that efficiency really showed in what kept Miami pretty much in this game, even when they were kind of going down, coming into the third quarter, pretty much starting out absolutely terrible. So loved the play from Kel'el Ware overall, and I'm hoping that at least that efficiency we've seen tonight can kind of continue to be more involved in impact plays, similarly to how we kind of saw over the course of this night. And now moving over to the other star from last night, at least on Miami's side of the ball, Kasparas Jakučonas shined in his preseason debut. Now, if you're looking at the points column and his overall shooting, most people would make the argument really that he didn't necessarily shine in his debut, but at least as a facilitator, he absolutely did. I believe he had 4 assists in the first 8 minutes he was on the floor. He had 10 assists to finish the game, and although he only shot 2 of 7 from the field, he definitely, a lot of those assists and buckets came at impact points in the game where the tides really turned, or it at least cut a deficit for Miami to kind of put them closer and keep them in the same or at least in range of potentially overtaking the game from the Spurs. He had a sick pass in this game that I don't really know how he got it off, but he kind of fed this weird alley-oop layup to Kel'el Ware, and I don't know how he found Ware, but Ware was able to kind of lay it up in the basket, and it was it's vision and playmaking like that I think is why Miami was so high and mighty on him once they drafted him. And when you have a guy like Goran Dragic, who's a very iconic facilitator, at least in the last 10 years over Miami's really, or at least for any Miami point guard rather, I think that Jakučonas definitely showed some signs of why he is going to be a very strong facilitator for Miami. I'm not saying he's going to be a clear-cut strong point guard. The kid's only 19 years old, and he's not going to be 20 until I believe May, but he definitely showed signs of being a promising young facilitator on this team last night. And I think that those 10 assists came off very important baskets that kept Miami in contention throughout the entirety of this game. And then the last player that I also want to talk about from this game last night that I thought, quite honestly, had a really good day was Jaime Jaquez Jr. He had 19 points in this game as well, but it wasn't, kind of what we saw from Kel'el Ware in the last matchup against the Bucks. It wasn't just 18 points that didn't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things or really keep Miami in contention of the game in the grand scheme of things. Jaquez looked confident in scoring a lot of those buckets. In the first quarter, he had a great transition dunk, throwing it down with force. He didn't necessarily look confused or disoriented at times like I feel like he kind of did at least in the first 2 games of the preseason, but he looked like he knew where he needed to be. He looked very confident in the buckets he was trying to get to fall in this game. Granted, he did shoot 6 of 8 from the field, and I think the stats actually kind of show that confidence a little bit more. It was also 7 of 7 from the free throw line. And I also forgot to mention Jakučonas plus 16 when he was on the field as well. And Jaquez being a piece in transition that was able to capitalize on some of those open looks that Jakučonas and some of the other guys were able to get him definitely played a role in Jakučonas' efficiency for one, but also played a role in Jaquez's ability to really be confident and kind of get most of those looks to fall in this game. So it was very exciting to see him at least have more of a direction in trying to figure out offensively what schemes he was trying to get going in this game. But he, again, it was nice to see him look a little bit more confident in this game in comparison to the first 2 preseason games. And I think how all 3 of these players played in last night's matchup is definitely going to not only be lethal for Miami, especially if they're all coming off the bench, but I think could really give them some sort of argument to potentially be a starter, whether it's full-time or not, on this team, and could really help Miami get out to some early leads, kind of like how we saw in this first game, because they definitely contributed to that 8-0 run to start the second quarter and why they were looking a lot stronger than this Spurs team, at least going into halftime. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Your Heat Latest here on FanArc. Don't forget to drop a like on this video, and of course, subscribe to our channel for great daily content, all pertaining to your Miami Heat right here, Monday through Friday. Thanks so much for joining us on this wonderful Thursday. I'm Sam Shapiro. Have a great day.